Are some colleges tracking you? Which is to say, are they paying attention to whether or not you've joined their email list? And if they send you emails, are you actually clicking on them? And are they tracking the interactions that you have with their admission office? In some cases, yeah. And are they using that information to, in some cases, impact your chances of acceptance at their college or university? In some cases, yeah. But I'm not trying to freak you out here. I want to share with you, practically speaking, what you can do with this information, if anything. I also want you to know what colleges are actually tracking, why they're tracking these things, and how can you use this information to actually reduce stress in the college application process. We're talking today about demonstrated interest, which, broadly speaking, is colleges tracking if they accept you into their college or university, are you likely to actually attend? So, what are they actually tracking? Well, for a recent podcast episode, I sat down with Christine Bowman, who's the Assistant VP of Admissions at Southwestern University, and side note, just a really rad human being. And she showed me via Zoom what she actually sees on her dashboard in terms of the interactions that a particular student will have with her institution. Take a look.
Is this activity history space right here? And maybe this events section that you see kind of right over here. And so when we've talked about in the podcast, the ability for me to see demonstrated interest over a span of time, this activity history is actually a visual representation of that.
Interesting, huh? Now again, I don't want to stress you out. I actually just want to give you a little insight into what all those little colored dots mean. So why do colleges care about these little colored dots and how much you're interacting with their institution? It has to do with three things. Number one, yield. Number two, their planning. And number three, ranking. So what is yield? Well, broadly speaking, it's the correlation between the number of students that a college or university accepts and the number of students of those actually end up enrolling at the institution. So to use a really simple analogy, let's say Stanford throws a party and Stanford invites 100 people and then only like 5 people show up. That kind of makes Stanford look bad. Now, to be fair to Stanford, when Stanford throws a party, usually 80 to 85 people are going to show up because Stanford's kind of popular. But there are some colleges and universities that accept 100 people and only 5 or 10 of those students will actually end up enrolling. Now that number, the 80 in the case of Stanford or 5 or 10 in the case of another institution, correlates to a percentage which creates their yield. Now, why do colleges care about yield? Well, first of all, it has to do with their planning. So let's say there's a particular college that wants to basically have 5,000 students show up on their campus. Well, they can't just accept 5,000 students, especially if they have a 50% yield rate, because what's going to happen? They accept 5,000 students, only 50% show up to the party, then they've got 2,500 empty beds. Each one represents revenue that the institution would have lost. But there's another reason that colleges care about yield, and it has a little something to do with something called rankings. Now, quick side note, many of my college admission colleagues dislike rankings. Some of them wish they would just go away altogether. But why do they care about the US News and World Report rankings? Well, because you do. And by you, I mean the consumer, the student or parent who's also looking at these rankings and caring about them. And they care about yield because yield is one of the things that US News and World Report looks at when they're figuring out the college's ranking. So yes, they're looking at how many colleges actually attended Stanford's party. Oh wow, a lot? That must mean they're pretty popular. They should be ranked higher. Now, I find that a little problematic, as do many of my colleagues. We could have a separate conversation about it, but hey, it's the state of things, and it's part of why colleges are paying attention to their yield. Okay, so what are colleges and universities actually tracking? Because some colleges and universities don't track this, but here are some examples from Christine. Take a look.
You see here that Savannah attended a visit day on our campus and attended a educational event within her home community. And then she actually clicked on that item. It became more important to her along the way.
If you want to see the whole video there, you can check it out, links below this one. But let's get practical. What can you actually do with this information? First of all, I want you to find out which colleges and universities that you're actually applying to actually track demonstrated interest. And can you figure out how to do this? You absolutely can, and here's how. Take the name of the school and Google that plus the words common data set, spelled like this. And once you do, click on the common data set for the current year, and then scroll down to section C7. You'll see a chart that has different check marks. And one of the check marks, one of the rows will say level of applicants' interest. Now, for some colleges and universities like UCLA, it'll say not considered or not important. But for some colleges and universities like Bates, for example, it'll say considered or important. And those are the ones I want you to pay attention to. Don't worry about the ones that say not considered, not important. So once you have this information and you know which of your schools actually track demonstrated interest, what should you do? Option 1, absolutely nothing. That's right. Many students are accepted to great colleges each year and they don't stress about demonstrated interest. You could totally take that path and you might be fine. Having said that, if you've got a few minutes and maybe a little bit of energy around this and you're watching this video, I would say pick 2 or 3 colleges and universities, and here are some low-lift things you could do to get on their radar, aka demonstrate some interest. First, go to their website and get on their email list. It takes just a couple minutes to do this. Put in your email. Side note, use the email that you're likely to use when you're actually applying to that institution. And then once they send you that first email, I want you to click on something in the email and then go to their website and spend a few minutes researching the school. Now, not every college is going to be tracking this, but for those that do, they'll see, hey, this person's really interested. And then when they send you future emails, again, click on it, spend a couple minutes on the website, and that's it. Okay? So then your open rates will correlate with the emails they sent, and they'll be like, yay, they like us. Maybe they're going to enroll at us. The next thing you can do, and not every college has this, but if they've got an opportunity to create a profile or a portal, that's what Christine was talking about in the video, go ahead and do this. And this might be just like getting on their email list, but it could be that there's a way to start an account. And if you can do that, go for it. Another thing you can do, attend a college fair. So take a look and see if they're going to be in your area, if you live in or near a big city. And if so, go to the desk for the person who represents that college or university and have them scan your QR badge. It might be like a badge they give you or some little card, because that's going to be connected to your email and that's going to be the way that you actually get on their radar. There are a bunch more things that you can do, and I've created a whole guide that you can find below this video that walks you through all those things, but let me hit some of the highlights. Another thing you can do, attend a virtual or in-person tour of the school. So if you live nearby, yes, go check it out, walk the campus, try the food, all the things. But if you don't or can't, some schools will have a virtual opportunity. Now, granted, you can't virtually try the food, but you can check out the campus and see what's what. Another thing you can do is interview if the school offers it. Not all schools do, but in some cases, just interviewing and being like, hey, checking that box, I totally interviewed, you offered me the chance, can be great demonstrated interest. But more importantly, these 2 things. Consider applying early action or early decision. Now, keep in mind that if you apply early decision, it's binding, which is to say, if you end up getting into the school, you have to go there, okay? So make sure that makes sense for you and your family. I've got a whole separate guide to that. I'll link below. But finally, and this might be the most useful thing you can do, spend some quality time on that school's supplemental essays. So the supplemental essays are the essays that some schools require besides the main Common App personal statement. And if they're not on the Common App, it's just their main large essay. Some schools will ask you to basically talk about, why do you want to attend our college? Or what are you going to bring to our campus? And if you're not sure what those are or how to do that, chances are if you Google the name of the school plus college essay guide, you'll find a huge step-by-step guide to writing the supplemental essays for that school, and all those are free. Final notes, which schools care most about demonstrated interest? I find that it's usually not those huge schools like UCLA that has hundreds of thousands of applicants. I find it's typically those smaller schools. So if you go to the college fair and you see the reps standing there on their own and you ask them, hey, if I applied to your school, who would read my application? And they're like, well, I would. Chances are that's a smaller school. They might care more about demonstrated interest. Oh, quick fun side note, you can actually ask them, do you track demonstrated interest? And they'll tell you. Usually the reps are pretty honest about something like this. Now, another thing you can do if you don't have a college fair or don't have a chance to visit is you can actually figure out who the regional rep, which is to say the person who likely is going to be reading your application at some institutions. But in some cases, you can Google the name of the school plus regional representative, and you can find out who reads for your region. And you can, if you want, initiate a conversation with them over email. All right, hope that was useful. I know that was a lot, but you'll find tons more at collegeessayguide.com. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. Love you. See you soon.